Hello, hello. We're just going to give the Zoom a minute for everyone to trickle in. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a beautiful day here in Vancouver, and I hope it's just as lovely from wherever it is that you're joining us. The webinar will begin in a few minutes, but in the meantime, I will run you through an introduction tailored to the Zoom side of things. Thank you so much for joining us for our conversations on collecting with Leslie Madsen. My name is Bahar Mohazabnia, and I'm the Assistant Curator of Engagement here at Griffin Art Projects. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge that our work takes place on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of Squamish and Tsleil-Waututh nations, to whom we are deeply grateful. As the latest edition of Griffin's Conversations on Collecting series, this conversation on collecting with Leslie Madsen continues to build on Griffin Art Project's mandate to make privately held collections accessible to the public. This enlightening conversation on collecting with Leslie Madsen is part of Griffin's exhibition, The Prop House, a collection of 1 million objects. Leslie will share her journey of collecting over 1 million objects that comprise the Mount Pleasant Furniture's holdings. The Prop House in the film and has been in the film and video industry for over 40 years, and Leslie will discuss the development of this collection and its place in the heart of filmmaking and theater imagination. And along with that, the audience will begin shortly.
Before you transitioned into
We had both. So we had the
Always.
stores and then we had the warehouse.
okay.
And in the beginning, it was quiet, like film, like that was back in the 80s, the late
Mhm.
80s. So film was just kind of creeping along, and then
Yeah.
it didn't blow up until in the 90s. So we always
Wow.
had both. The stores actually used to financially support the warehouse collection.
I see. So
beginning.
it started with the antique store
Yeah.
supporting the warehouse. And you have lived in this space. So for 40 years, you've not only been the proprietor of Mount Pleasant Furniture,
Mhm.
but you've actually lived right with the collection and raised your family there.
That is correct.
Amazing. So just
So what was it like to live and work with this growing collection and raising your children in that live work space in that neighborhood?
Yeah, in the beginning, well, we moved in there in 1987, so there was nobody around. It was very industrial. My kids, we'd send them to the west side of town to go to school because there was no schools for them around. It was a bit of a trial and error, but it worked out well for us. Yeah. And it was nice to be able to just go downstairs to work. I used to have to go to Main Street to go to the stores, but then after when I gave up the retail, it's just going downstairs.
I mean, part of what makes this story interesting for me is that it's old school,
It's totally
not an historical building, but it's a mom and pop business,
correct.
and it's still family owned and operated. And I think you had mentioned before that that is something that's completely disappearing in that warehouse district.
Yes. Yeah. We were the only family that lived in that zone for that area because it was zoned residential for the top floor, grandfather right. The rest of the buildings are mostly commercial, but they're moving along because of the development. The zoning has changed, the Broadway corridor. So a lot of the old businesses that have been there as long as I have been have now sold their properties and are moving on.
well, I understand that there were a number of pranks related to some of the objects in the prop house with your kids growing up and visitors from time to time. If you want to share one or two of those.
Well, there was a lot. My kids love to have their friends over. They'd bring their friends over and the parents would go, my kids would have like a birthday party and they go, where do these people live? Because my kids went to school on the west side and they'd see our address and go, So they were like, I don't know. So they'd show up, they'd bring their kids over, like when they were like kindergarten, grade 1, and the parents would walk into our house and go, what is this? Is this a museum? And it's like, it's where we live. This is what we do. So we had many parties and the kids, lots of friends, and they'd play hide and seek. They'd ask to go down to second floor and they would disappear down there, and I always have to go find them, but you could always hear them giggling and carrying on. So it became a popular hangout through their whole childhood to teenagers. Teenagers, it got a little bit worse because when I go away and leave town, they would have wild parties with DJs and stuff, which, yeah. Yeah.
So it's kind of like living in, not just visiting, an extended long visit to a huge grandma's house of
Yes.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, we specialize in mostly vintage and antique. So, but we have, well, you've been there, so many things and lots of things to play with. The kids are always, yeah, having a good time.
So only because you mentioned, gentrification and East Van and the West Side and the snobbery and the class difference with that. But meanwhile, a lot of your stuff came from the States. So how did you, give me some background. How do you come across this stuff? How it comes across your door?
So we would buy everything locally. We never shipped in anything. We never did that. So everything's local. We had pickers. So the pickers would come with their vans and they would do the estate sales. Sometimes we would do estate sales. Also, we'd get called mostly from our antique stores, and then people get to know you and then they call you. So we would be purchasing things all the time, locally found. Yeah.
And you said, so you would go to estate sale,
Sometimes, yeah.
but then you would have pickers
And then we had pickers. Yeah.
that would go and think that you would like this stuff and
Yeah.
then bring it to your door.
Yeah. They bring it in their vans. Yeah.
And it looks like you bought everything.
Mhm.
And more.
Yeah.
You didn't turn much stuff down?
There's a lot. We would turn some things down, but your pickers always know what you like. Like when we sort of have a specialty. Yeah. So they sort of know. Sometimes you have to buy the whole lot just for the price, right? It's for negotiation. But then when we had the retail stores, we would sell the things, right? Keep the things that we like. And that's how the prop house just kept growing because we kept too many things that we liked all the time. So then we decided that we had to really make a business out of it to make them all pay their way.
But you
The
haven't been
object.
selling stuff for a long time.
Hmm?
Because
Sorry.
I get the sense that in recent decades, you
Oh,
don't sell, you
no.
only buy more.
So when we closed the retail stores and I full-time did the prop house, we do not sell anything. Everything there, like, it's just so everybody knows it's consistent. So when you do a movie set, like especially a TV series, they like consistency because they reshoot sometimes the same sets. And so you always have to have that object. So nothing's for sale. And if we sold something to one person, then they'll get out and say, well, you did this to that. So you have to, so we just go, no, keep it simple, right? Yeah.
Now, just to give you a sense of, there is a video that kind of gives you a brief tour of both the buildings, the original building that you own, and across the street, the big concrete warehouse that you've rented for like 25 years. There's like 700 Persian carpets.
792.
Thank you. Just to give you a sense of the vastness of some of these collections.
Mhm.
What was the last thing you bought?
Good
And
question.
when?
I honestly can't remember the last thing I bought. I can't.
Can you remember the
A
first
lot of
thing?
times, what we have been doing like lately is because all of our pickers have sort of disappeared now. So we don't have that. So what we were doing is buying a lot of stuff off the movie sets. So the productions would call us and they would have important things that they had sourced and shipped in, or, like, and all vintage. So they know, oh, we want Mount Pleasant to have that. So they call me and I'd go in there and buy a lot of stuff, so that we were doing a lot of that. So then they know it's in the city, I won't sell it, and they can rely on it being there for their future use.
Just on that, what's one of the most unique collections or sales or objects that you can remember acquiring?
So hard. We just do so many. The most of them were our motion pictures that we would buy like stuff from. The series, they will have their set lockups, so they keep their stuff. But so usually when a big picture's complete, then they'll call me up and say, hey, we got this for you. And the other prop houses, they specialize in different things. So they'll call the other prop house and say, this is what we, you should have. Yeah. So,
Just to be also clarify, this Mount Pleasant furniture is 99% real objects. They're not styrofoam set pieces. They're not fakes. They were everyday objects, unique and rare objects, but they're not reproductions just for the movies.
correct.
Just in terms of your acquisitions of things, do you have what's perhaps the strangest or most unusual place you've sourced from? Anything that's come to you in a way that's a bit unexpected? So you've got the pickers, you've got these.
Yeah,
bake
no, usually,
sales.
so it was always the pickers that were the most interesting because you never knew what they were going to show up with, right? So he was like, yeah.
And what's the job description of a picker? Like what do they come with? Like, do they have a collections background themselves?
There's few and
or
far,
theater?
they're like garage sale people that go and they have a whole art to it. There's very few of them left now. Yeah, I don't have any pickers left anymore. But yeah, that's what they do. It's like a hard job. They try to get in there before the public gets there.
And do you think that's part of the changing industry, that the pickers have disappeared? Is that part of that changing
I think
relationship?
because of everything's gone online, people now they sell things online rather than have like garage sales. Like back in the day, Paul's from Main Street. You remember there was always garage sales around everywhere, right? And now you notice that there's not that many around because people are just doing online sales now.
Do you have any objects that you have kind of a special relationship with? Like if you had to choose some, are there any that kind of have stood out to you that you've lived with in a different way?
I really have a hard time picking a favorite.
Yeah.
I really do. Everything has its own merit. So when I look at it, I always see something. So it's, yeah, people have asked me that, pick your favorite. And I go,
It's an overwhelming
Yeah,
question.
it's overwhelming.
When you look at the installation here, because it's such a different configuration, has anything new occurred to you about your own collection, looking at how it's configured here? Or
Well, it's really interesting how everybody has chosen what to do. And I find it really fascinating to see it outside of, because I will go to movie sets and I will go and look, and it's kind of like you can almost guess what's happening because you sort of know what they want and what they're working on. But this is put into like whole different, presentation, and it's great. I'm enjoying it. Yes. Yeah.
So on that topic, because you said you know every object, so you know every object that's in.
Yeah, I can recognize I recognize my things. I can't tell you exactly when I bought them. I can tell you approximately how long I've owned them for.
So give me an example. Pick a clock there and tell me what that we can all see, like that Westinghouse one that's lit up.
The Westinghouse clock has been in the collection for probably because I collect enamel signs myself and clocks. So that's probably been around for about 30 years. Yeah. The biggest renter of all those clocks is the one with the green ring down there. That's very popular.
The neon.
Rental. Yeah, the neon. Yeah. That's the #1 renter for.
And so in this room, what is is it, what's a big renting item?
Which is a big rental? The portraits, that one right there with the oval, the man with the beard, the lady right there, and the man below. He always goes out as a judge. Yeah, he's always a judge. Yeah. Oh, the most popular renters that go out like constant on a regular basis. Yeah.
But like I was surprised that our artist selected the 28 portraits, and apparently out of the collection of hundreds of paintings, landscapes, reproduction, clowns, dogs, that there's only, this is your entire collection of painted portraits.
Yeah.
I was surprised there wasn't more.
Yeah.
Did
They're
you know,
hard-
did
they're-
you know there was only 28?
Yeah, they're hard to find. Like we've owned those for a long time, and they're like, those are things that came up through estate sales, garage sales. Yeah, a lot of time families don't let go of portraits because they're a family member. So I don't know. That's why it was interesting when they were doing doing the portraits, is trying to figure out who they are, which is like, I've always wondered that. Like, I always thought, who are you? Yeah.
And that's one of the things that Kathy Busby has done. She has actually been able to track some of the artists
Yes.
and track some of the subjects. So finally, we have more information
Mhm.
in terms of the provenance
Some
of-
mystery
and where they
solved.
also even came from.
Yeah. Yeah.
For those who may not know that in the hundreds of artworks, 2D artworks in the collection, a lot of it now cannot be rented out
That's
because
correct.
there's no provenance on them and they're not 100 years old.
Yeah. For things.
So,
that we
so there's a
do.
lot of stuff cannot be licensed out. So there's this vast collection of paintings, drawings, photographs, because they can't legally be rented out.
No, unless yeah, it's really difficult for that. I mean, if they're over 100 years old, but that's the portraits and the paintings. We have so many of those, and that was one of the things that we used to buy a lot from our pickers, because people were like, "Man, get rid of this. It's I don't want it. It's my grandma's. It's not my taste," right? So they'd always be in the pile, and we would just hang them on the walls because it's like we have wall space. Why not put them up there? Sometimes we can find like some of the old landscapes. I can clear some of those when I know they're over 100 years old, but there's a whole bunch that aren't.
Because we're all fascinated by that type of thing. So have you sourced something at an extraordinarily cheap price and then realized that, wow, this is like the real deal?
Yeah, I think we had a few paintings. I have a friend that does appraisals, and she came in and she did find a few paintings, which are now in my house. But and they were like, you've been into that room, the room down in the basement, the art room down there. So she had gone through, Shelby, my friend, she went through and she pulled some paintings out. Which we probably only paid, like, who knows?
Pay $5.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now they're worth like,
It's in the pile, like, you just buy the pile, right?
That's the Antiques Roadshow question.
Okay.
That's what everybody wants, the discovery, right? I'm wondering if our audience might have some questions brewing as well, and we can continue to have our conversation, but we do want to hear from you because I'm sure having seen this exhibition, you're starting to have your own prompts. There's a deep nostalgia in looking at some of these items. And it's also a material nostalgia. Like I think over time, as you've been collecting over 40 years, even the way people work with materials, the kinds of craftsmanship and things like that must have changed. I wonder if you could comment on that at all, if there's any specific things you've seen over time.
Over time. Because we sort of stay in the same genre of what we do, yeah, everything is like like the workmanship is so fantastic compared to getting something new. Like my kids, their houses all have antique furniture and like their dresser drawers and all that because they love it. They're like, this is solid wood. It's beautiful. My son, he does woodworking, so he refinishes stuff and yeah.
because we're doing this on Zoom, so we have to use a microphone because there's people listening and we're also recording.
Well, I found the discussion of the paintings having provenance really interesting because that's what I do. But also when I first moved to Vancouver, I went to the set of The Little Match Girl. Do you remember that they took over the whole of Yaletown before Yaletown was delivered just around Expo 86? And the art director noticed that someone had put a match book that, you buy in the store now, Little Bird, that some set person thought, oh, that looks like it might have worked beside the stove for Little Match Girl. And of course, you know, the director had to go nuts on this, the art director. So I'm thinking about the repeat of your objects within these incredible films that have been made since that period in
Mhm.
Vancouver. And is there any danger when your set pickers are coming to see, oh, would that be recognizable from this other film or this other series? And so do you have to keep very good records of how many times this object has been in that show and whether it was noticeable or not? Or how do you
That-
work with that?
Back in the day, we used to get out our cameras and we used to shoot everything. We wouldn't develop the film unless we had to, because I mean, we do have stacks and stacks from back in the day, but we would list, back then, we hand listed and we photographed everything, and we always kept like a list of the set, the time, and so we always knew what every show has had. Now we do everything digitally, and we can just go look ups. So we always know what's going on. And sometimes a buyer or a decorator will ask like about an object to see if it's too recognizable, like even in one of their other sets. So yeah, but we can just always look it up.
We have a question from Josh. Full disclosure, I'm the cousin, so I know many of these stories.
He's my cousin.
Yeah. Yes, yes, this is the family section here. I think something that Paul asked earlier, and I'm just going to go back to, because I think it's quite colorful and interesting for people. As an example of the history of the pieces that you have, tell a little bit, if you would, about the X-Files. Not only the work you did on it originally, but how it came back into your life. Because I think the history of the collection is encapsulated in often your experience with that show in particular.
Right.
And I think that's interesting.
So when I was a child, I used to spend time with my aunt Jackie and her husband Graham. Graham's a production designer, and he worked on many Canadian CBC shows. So I got to experience from a little kid to like a young teenager. I got to go to the sets of like Beachcombers, and I remember an A&W commercial with the bear. So Graham, I always found it very fascinating because Graham, he used to build things too. Remember, like, so I got fascinated at a young age. And then when I got it doing the antique things, and then Graham ended up working as a production designer for the X-Files. When he was very supportive of the prop house, and it worked out well where, he really encouraged me to carry on with what we were doing. So in the beginning, it was a little bit shaky because it was so slow. And then, by the time the early 90s hit, it had formed into, it was holding its own. Yeah.
So Josh, you've grown up with this collection. And?
We used to be able to wave to each other on our roofs, but then a big building went up in between. We had to complain to the city. It's a bit of a wonderland going in. And I'm just going to like cue you because I know these stories and I know. Tell me about the people that have been brought into your lives, because there's been so many interesting people, creative people, fascinating people, funny people. Tell me about what the human experience has been like. What's been drawn to you as a result of these pieces?
I have met many people through this industry for sure. We've always had, I have a big rooftop deck, so we've had many parties, movie parties up there. Including your birthday, cousin Josh.
But the different minds that you've met, like, you know, we have someone here. The people who are
Anastasia McDonald.
but
Paul Wong.
is it, do you get to sort of reverberate off them? Like, is there a give and take, the people you've met, because they're so creative
Yeah.
and you both
I've
care?
met many friends, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. My cousin can tell that story. We can get, you want movie stories?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, 2 weeks ago.
My cousin was gracious enough to host my 40th birthday party in this wonderland. And Anastasia was gracious enough to decorate it. And we had a wonderful time. And around midnight, there was a bit of a kerfuffle because somebody was coming in. And we were busy dancing to Whitney Houston and hanging out with our friends. And cousin said, well, I'm going to go upstairs. I've had enough of hosting your party. I'm going to go up there. And she has a chair that she sits in when she wants to compose herself and just be quiet. And she walked upstairs, and in that chair was Academy Award winner Kate Winslet. And so cousin said, excuse me, you're in my chair, you'll have to move. And Kate Winslet said, absolutely. And she moved to the other chair, and they sat for an hour talking about kids and raising kids and working in film. And yeah, there you go. That's what I'm saying about the people and the gift of the people that
Yeah.
you've met through this.
I had Jason Momoa call me like 2 weeks ago for my birthday. He FaceTimed me, which was kind of fun. Yeah. And then I had a surprise birthday party 2 weeks ago where the stuntmen from the Smash Machine showed up to my house. So I met The Rock's cousin and his son and a bunch of other people too. So I didn't know what was happening. It's like, surprise.
So we have 300 objects in this exhibition from the collection.
Your guess is as good as mine, actually. We didn't do a full.
Parveen, did you do a count? Didn't you tell me there was 300 pieces? Parveen is one of the artists.
Yeah.
She's the one that worked up with the mirrors here.
I think there are more 300 objects here because we may underestimate, but every little objects that we put here, if we want to count it, it would be more. But we were talking with the gallery assistant, curator, and staff that actually the number of the objects even in our house is strange. We don't have any idea, but maybe each one of us have a lot of objects near to 1,000 because we can count any little hair band or socks or salt shaker and salt pepper, you know. So if you count all these objects would be a lot. So the same as this exhibition is a lot of work. I know that Kathy, for example, has 28 objects. I have rugs, I have mirrors, and there are many books over there. There are many fruits on that bowl, plastic fruit. So they are, each fragment counts because you put different plastic fruits in one bowl. I have one question, if you don't mind here. First of all, I don't know about the estate sale because I'm not from this culture. So what is the estate sale is my first.
When somebody is selling their things, so it's like they're like moving or something's happened and they're getting rid of their belongings.
I thought that is connected to United States. I thought that people go to United
Oh, no, no,
States
no,
and
no.
buy things in a bargain.
Yeah.
Yeah. So estate sale for me, like that made sense like that. Okay, so it's actually a big move,
Well, yeah.
big selling of
When
the
they're,
furniture.
yeah,
Similar to
situation.
garage sale, but
Yes,
more precious.
exactly. It's, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, more
that.
precious items. I'm wondering, I have a really important question for me. I'm very connected to objects, and from first day that I viewed the objects on the website, I found that some of these objects look so amazing between like cultures. For example, rugs. Many people are not from a certain culture, but they value a beautiful rug or beautiful painting or any other objects. I'm wondering that if you find any persistent love from people that they come to you and say that, can we buy this object from you and we pay whatever you tell, but we really in love with this object. So did you have any buyer that come to you and you say that, no, these are rental, but they say that, no, please, I want to have this.
Yeah, no, we've had that happen, but we just have to say no, because if we do it with one person, then it will snowball. So we just have to keep it and just say no.
Even if they said a high price, you didn't accept that.
Just say no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after this exhibition ends, I know that you plan to sell all of this to one place.
Mhm.
So do you mind at the end, also, although you want to sell it as a whole, but do
I
you,
want to sell it as a whole, keep it together. Yeah,
because it would be difficult to sell it individually.
correct.
It would be too much work.
And I'd be in big trouble in the film world because they really rely on the prop house. So the film wants it to stay intact.
Oh, so
Yeah.
the need of all these objects
Yes.
together makes it ethical or responsibility for you to hand it to another kind of big
Yeah.
collector. Okay. And so far, there are some people that they showed interest and you are
Yes.
negotiating with them?
Yes.
Oh, so they are finding another destination.
Yes.
after this. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you first for this conversation. It's really interesting to know that I'm new to this collection, so this is my first time seeing part of the collections. My question is that what's your thought on keeping the item as it is? Like if someone come to you, a production designer come to you and say, oh, we actually really like this painting, but could you like paint it in gold, like the frame? Would you do that or would you keep it
No.
original?
No.
Do
we
you
don't.
have any stories about that related to that?
We do. We have had stories and they get in big trouble for whoever does it. They'll take something and without asking us, they will alter it. They will phone, like they always ask, and then if we say no, because we don't, because everything, we try to keep everything as original as possible. If they go and do that, then they get in big trouble, and we send it out to have it, or we'll do it in our shop to restore it to the original, but they will get charged a fee for that. Strict on it, yeah. We want to keep the items as is, yeah. Unless it's something that's like really beat up and they're like, oh, well, and it's like, okay, if you're gonna a little bit more damage on it, we'll let that sort of go away when it's sort of too far gone. But anything else, no, we try to keep it as true to itself. Like that's, yeah.
Is it just like a personal responsibility you felt to these objects, or is it more like obligation towards the film industry that you like, I want to keep it as it is?
It's a combination of both, but it is, as you know, like it's a collection of vintage and antique. So you don't want to compromise the object. You want to keep it as true as possible. We have a website where the buyers or the designers, they can look up and so they'll see a picture of it. And so we want, when they come to look at it, we want it to be that item. We don't want it to be painted green or something, you know, like that. So it's not what they're expecting. Thank you.
I should just mention there's a fantastic installation in the window storefront of 38 West 4th by an artist and one of their staff people. And that work is called L&D, Lost and Destroyed. So there's lost and damaged. So it's this tornado of wrapping paper with all these damaged objects in the store window. So, and then they do have a major repair department.
A person that specializes in repairing things, but sometimes things just are too far gone. So yeah, the production will get charged for that and they'll get a bit of a lecture, of course. But yeah, the installation at the warehouse, it's in the front window and it's quite something. It's like a tornado going up with things that we can't fix, broken objects. And look, my staff, you know, they'll unpack boxes and they'll find things and they'll go, look at this, you know, by not packing properly and that.
Leslie, can you tell the story about Katharine Hepburn and the trunk?
Yes. Katharine Hepburn, she came to Vancouver like 4 or 5 times. Excuse me. Yeah, back in the day. And she insisted on picking her own items from the warehouse. She loved this domed leather trunk. that she always insisted on having. And she had a coffee table that she loved. And also she had First Nations baskets. And every film or project that she worked on, she requested those. Yeah. She actually gave us a book on her autobiography, like about herself, and she signed it. Yeah. Thank you for all the beautiful things. Yeah. Exactly. She's checking up on it. Mhm.
So where are those objects now?
They're in the warehouse.
Can I buy them?
You know the rules, Paul.
Right. No, I've often hinted at things, but one of the things that um, I've actually stopped collect. I've given you a few things over the years, but I always know that this place is there, and that I don't actually have to collect those things myself. So it's actually, but now that they're not going to be down the street anymore in the in the near future, I'm kind of, yeah, because I kind of always knew, particularly like the Chinese collection. I've used that in small ways for many, many years, that there is a great comfort knowing that that stuff is there and available to me. And now it might be available to me, but in Langley.
Yeah. I know, just the thought of when I walk through there and I think, because I'm just so used to it, like, and I look at, hello, 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 and just to think that one day my building will be empty. It's so strange for me. You know? Yeah, think that.
So those that may not know, we have 2 afternoons of 1-hour walking tours through the 2 buildings. One is on next Sunday,
2 Sundays.
July 21st, and August 7th. So you can book today. We are charging a small fee to keep everyone honest to show up. We're only taking 8 people per tour, and there's only 3 tours each day. So so it's quite limited, but it's quite a labyrinth if you really. I mean, one of the most amazing things about this collection is that it's organically grown in this 3-4-story building, where that back room has just become that collection, that has become this, and then the warehouse is that hallway, that basement, that corner, where I see that if and when this collection gets moved to some clean little warehouse in Ladner, they'll all be on like perfect metal shelves with
Exactly.
numbers. So yeah, this is an organic collection it's organized. It looks crazy. It looks disorganized, but in fact, everything is cataloged with the session numbers.
Mhm.
So if you want to join this once in a lifetime tour, do it. I'll be giving one of the tours. She'll be giving one of the tours. So
Yep, we'll be doing the
Just
tours.
wanted to mention one thing, which is it feels like that's reminding me when you say it looks kind of eclectic when you go in there, and it feels like it rests somewhere between a personal collection and a business. And I think that's what is so fascinating about it, is that you're not separated from feeling about these objects. And when collectors collect, that's like one of the primary imperatives is a feeling toward an object. So even
You
though
can feel the love, yeah.
yeah, so even though you're collecting estates and in bulk and looking at things, you still, like I said earlier, you know each piece in this collection, you know each piece in this room. You have that feeling about keeping the collection together. And I just wonder, yeah, how does that feel like to have these things always moving? They're a kind of cultural memory, like you're talking about knowing they're up the street.
Paul's completely right when and it was actually Paul, when you remember Paul brought you on tour. Paul's so right when I said to him, we're going to have to move because the building across the street has sold. And we're probably going to have to end up in Burnaby or somewhere further. And Paul said, I love how this place works. There's small little rooms, and the building that I live in is from like 1911 or 6 or somewhere like that, but it's Victorian, all these little rooms, and everything's all moving around. And then the building across the way is from the 20s, and this big vast building, but Paul said to me, we should do something about this because when it does move, it's not going to be the same. It's just not going to be the same. It's going to be exactly what Paul says. It's going to be on racks and it's going to look, yeah, it's going to, it will be strange for me to look at it presented that way. Yeah.
Do we have questions online as well? And I know we have questions back here. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi there. This is just an idle question that occurred to me while I was listening to the conversation. I found myself wondering if your pickers bring you indigenous objects, and if so, how do you handle collecting them? And have you ever had any indigenous person or group make claim on any of those objects and say they should be returned? Has that ever happened to you at this point?
I am a collector myself personally of Indigenous art. So I have a lot of Indigenous artists that are friends of mine. I collect, like I've got totem poles in my house. I've got baskets. I've got all sorts of things. Things that I find important, I just give them away to them. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Can I speak on that?
Yeah, you can
No,
speak on that, yeah.
there's quite an extraordinary collection of objects in the kind of indigenous section. Some of it has authentic, some of it's been appropriated, some of it can be easily identified who they are. I had hoped to have interested enough to invite an indigenous artist, Charlene, thinking that might be of interest, particularly she's from the prairies. There's a lot of stuff from the plains, but Charlene responded even before going to the warehouse, just from photographs, that hosier came to her mind, and we ended up going straight to that hosier, and that's what she ended up responding to her piece to. So just like there's the Chinese collection, the sort of Indonesian collection, the pioneer Western collection, some things are kind of geographically, some are period piece organized. So it's a real eclectic collection. And you can imagine how anyone would want to use this stuff to create a set. Like there's the Western section, which is all like wagon wheels, and there's even a goth section of medieval stuff. So, but the indigenous collection is quite fascinating. There's a lot of moccasins, a lot of baskets, a lot of masks, and some of it looks very, very intriguing. But again, this is we're talking about people coming and buying. This has been this hidden gem that only creatives and art directors know about. It's never been open to the public. The public is not welcome to knock on the door and say, maybe have a looky. No, it's by industry invitation.
That's very true. But I have with the new L&D in the window, people are constantly coming and they're like ringing my doorbell. And I was actually sitting waiting for my cousin and my aunt to pick me up in the Uber today. And there's people, I was sitting on the front stairs and there's people going, whoa, what is this? Let's try to get in there.
So this is,
and I pretend I don't live there.
and this is D.A. Schaffer's installation that's in the window, that's
Yeah.
part of the exhibition that's
Yeah.
attracting people to come and look. So please make a moment to go and have a look at it. Yeah. And how are we doing on Zoom?
Hi, Zoomers.
All right, so there are some questions from Zoom. The first one is, what are some of the pieces that showed up in the X-Files that fans of the show might recognize?
Oh, wow. And because, I mean, we did so much work on the X-Files, but perhaps maybe Josh, because you have to Josh actually deals with, don't you, Dan, deal with the bankrupts from the X-Files?
I'm in touch with some of the folks, yeah. Mulder's entire office, which when I was speaking earlier, they came back to you and said, recreate this 25 years later when they did the reboot. So the entire office.
Right.
And then the reason Paul's wonderful exhibit here, the Emmy Award-winning episode, the postmodern Prometheus, which was sort of a retelling of the Frankenstein tale. And you did everything in all those homes. And it was all in black and white. And it was very haunting and beautiful. And they remember that very much so.
Thank you. You have the chairs. Yes, 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 yeah.
No, in the exhibition here, we actually have objects from that episode How Many, but we actually have 2 chairs that were in Mulder's office,
That's right.
which you selected because you know about them. She knew that those were chairs that were used in the set. So we have authentic pieces here.
We do.
Yeah, there's another question. Are you hoping to remain involved in the entertainment industry when you retire? Or what other plans do you have for your retirement after being involved with the prop house for so long?
I haven't navigated that as of yet. So I probably will retire. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. Get back to life. We'll learn my own life. A new chapter.
I have actually 2 questions, but these are very important for me for my practice also. So I appreciate your vision and your advice. First of all, is a kind of questions about materiality and physicality of the objects, that they need care, they need preservation, and it takes a lot of energy. I have had the collection of 60, 70 rugs, and then some of them I lost because of the moth. So the change in temperature, or if a lady donated some old textile from Iran to me, and I was naive and I was accepting that donation, and then I was so happy to have them, and then one moth in them destroyed all my rugs.
Yeah.
So I am wondering, because you send objects to other places, there might be little things, little insects that they go to the wood, they go to the fabric, textile, and then you receive them back. I'm wondering how you can manage this.
So, weather permitting, when we receive our carpets back, they come back bundled and we put them in the loading bay. And then we wait for when it's not raining, and they're all lined up and they're taken outside and they're hand vacuumed. And then we spray them with lavender oil and eucalyptus oil on them. And lavender and eucalyptus oil, and then water, and then we spray them, and then we roll them back up. But it's an ongoing process. We always have to check.
Yeah.
And then twice a year, we do carpet inventory and we clean out the shelves, and you have to, like, with bleach the floors and all that stuff, because moths are relentless. Yes.
When I was visiting your Mount Pleasant space, I just was thinking, oh, too many rugs. And then because they were on top of each other, you didn't have any other way, because there were many of them. Then I thought that how they are taking care of this, because I had ended up to buy mothballs, and now they are so smelly that getting rid of them is so difficult.
Yeah.
And anyway, I had to get rid of some of my beautiful precious rugs, and I found that
so
now this rug is nice, and I found it to learn from you. The second question is that in terms of place and atmosphere, I know that I am an artist, so I react or respond to objects differently. But when I was in this space, I found that some of these kind of rooms or spaces for me were haunting because of the energy of the objects. So you generously let us to borrow some objects, but I thought that I don't want even to take some of these objects to my home. They were so powerful, to my surprise, so powerful that even I couldn't borrow them. So I ended up borrowing some objects that their energy were more mild. But when I was moving around and looking at objects, and I found that, some of these objects are and the space in general has a lot of energy of all these objects traveling from different homes and stories and belonging to people that they are not living with us anymore. And based on experience of my friends, myself personally, and some of my artist friends that we have been in residencies or art places with many objects, people have really strange experiences of objects moving, or they seeing something, or they felt something. So I trust actually the words of those people, because I have also had similar experience in some of those places. For example, Vancouver Art Gallery, when I was working for 4 years, some of my colleagues, they seen really strange things in the place. So I am wondering, have you heard any story or something about your place that your staff say that something has changed, or you felt somehow similar, like similar thing like the day that I felt?
Yeah.
For example, the corridor that had a lot of pictures of the people that you said now they are not, most of them, they are not alive anymore.
Yeah.
Their photos is there.
Yes. The wall of dead people. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you walk up the stairway and there are all these portraits, the oval portraits, all
Yeah.
looking at you. Yeah.
So I am wondering that what is the response of your body and soul when you go?
Everybody's different. It's kind of interesting because I sometimes think that's why you're attracted to something. Like, as you said, something scares you, but other people, it wouldn't scare them. It's really a unique thing. But I definitely agree with you that a lot of objects give off more energy than not. Yeah, like, because they've got such a rich history. They've been around for 100 years, more like if they could only talk to you. You know?
Yeah, I found that moving around that space
Yeah.
is not easy even, like for a
No.
long time, because of the high energy of so many precious objects that
Yeah.
never close to body.
It's like they all want to speak to you at the same
Yeah,
time.
they are part of their life and body, the
Yeah.
individuals. Thank you so much.
You bet.
I just mentioned this haunting. Jermaine Cole's piece is actually haunting 3. So that's the sound and motion activated with all the lamps. How are we doing for time?
2:00 now. So we do have time for a couple more questions. Do we have any more on Zoom? Okay.
Thank you so much. So another question, you previously talked about how, objects changing on the request of others. But the question was, has there been a piece that you've loaned out that came back beyond repair? What was a piece that was damaged or lost, that was a huge loss for you / the collection? What was it?
There's a lot of things that have been lost, damaged, disappeared. It's that's a hard question to answer because there's been so much over the years that has gone missing. My friend Anastasia, who works in film, she can stand by that and talk about that too. We do our best to try to instill, but things get damaged, and a lot of times it's by poor packing or not, tying things up properly in the truck. So, but there's always a risk when there's transport involved.
I know what doesn't go out because one fell off a truck is she's got a few incredible jukeboxes. You don't let those out anymore. So there are things that do not leave the building.
They do not leave the building. Yeah, the jukeboxes, there's some older jukeboxes that are kind of like, they don't work, so you're just looking like, they'll light up. But the ones that are restored, the old Wurlitzers and that, they're too difficult to move and for them to get moved around like that. Hard to find a jukebox repairman these days.
Thank you so much. Yes, there was one that was sort of asking for some more clarification on what's going to happen to the collection now. You mentioned sort of keeping it together, but they were wondering, has it been purchased? Will any of it be donated? Sort of,
We're working on moving it and keeping it in film. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
I think there's one question at the back there. Oh.
Hi. So my question to you is that usually the clients or the people from industry who approach you, do they always have a specific choice or maybe like regarding an object, or usually they just come and explore what they need? Usually like people have specific choices about what they want. So do people, when they approach you, they have specific choices, or they just want to come and explore the place and then figure out what they need for themselves?
I think it's a combo of both because they know what they're set, what they have to do. So they know what they're looking for. A lot of we have so many objects. Most of our objects, like our larger objects, are online. But in order to get like the smaller objects, you have to come in and shop around yourself. So they usually know, the buyers and the decorators, they know what they are looking for. Yeah.
I can pass this to Anastasia because
Yeah.
Anastasia was a set decorator and a buyer still for film. And she's actually the one that introduced me to Mount Pleasant Furniture and Leslie. So she's someone who's used this place probably hundreds of times. What's your process for like going in and finding something?
We sort of, well, we're given a set and we know what we need, whether we need a couch or a table, and we know the look we're going after. So often I go in and I'll look online, but I will also go in and photograph the stuff and then bring it back to my decorator. And then they pick between the production designer and the decorator. So that's how it works, pretty much.
So what have you used in here?
I would say the mirrors, portraits, I would say in the other room around the corner. Yeah, a lot of that stuff. Pretty much that's it. And lamps, of course.
So many of these objects, specific items you've used in specific productions, and you know what they would be.
Yes.
And she knows less.
She knows Mount Pleasant Furniture very well. She's one of the senior buyers and she's a hard worker and she is always in there looking. I find that a lot of the youngsters that are in film, they try to do everything online and they don't come in. And then when they come in, they go, oh, I didn't know you had that. And I said, well, that's why you have to come in. Yeah.
One more question.
Okay, this is the last question, so I'll make it good. I'm just wondering, like, as an artist, like, you feel like when you create an object, you grow attachment to the object. Do you felt the same about your collection, or is it like kids, once you reach a certain numbers of kids, you're like, oh, just send another one, yeah, sure.
No, yeah, you become attached. I will, yeah. I'm attached to the objects for sure. Yeah.
So they're like your babies, and you
Yeah,
like
it's my family.
that's why, like, if someone comes in and painted them other
Oh,
colors,
yeah,
you're like, no, no.
Big trouble. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love what you've just said about this collection is like family. And I think, it's interesting because at Griffin, we're focused on private collections and looking at private collections. And I have a feeling that every collector we work with would say the same, that the works that they're living with, that there's a live relation to them. And I just think it's so beautiful that could be expanded to over 1 million objects, that you could have that relation to them. And what Parvin was saying about, that each object has a kind of aura to it. And the Victorians were aware of this. There was that sense of meditating on objects and the haunting of objects, but mostly that the collection is a kind of body. It's a kind of its own entity in that sense, that as a collective, it's all together, has that strong feeling for you. Yeah. Leslie, I just want to thank you so very much for being so generous and sharing this with us, in allowing us to play with it in such a different way and trusting us with this work and being able to share it with us today. And also the site itself, we're going to get to visit. So how amazing is that on July 21st, that Leslie's opened the doors for that hungry public that's been gathering like this morning outside your doors, and August 7th as well. So 1 o'clock, there'll be 3 tours. You can sign up online. So please do. I want to thank On Main Gallery and the City of Vancouver, of course, Mount Pleasant Furniture, at this incredible junction too, as you think about it. And I'm sure it's quite emotional to think about all of it too. Grunt Gallery and the Mount Pleasant Community Art Screen, thank you so much. Please make a point of going to see those offsite projects so that you can enter those in the registry of your imagination as well. And have a noodle around the Mount Pleasant Furniture website because it's all there.
Yep.
But as Leslie just said, it's not anything like in person.
That's-
So thank you so much.
Thank you for the incredible experience. It's been an honor for me, and it's such a great way for you guys to showcase the family.
Wonderful. It has been an honor. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us virtually. Along with the exhibition, the Prop House also consists of an offsite project by Paul Wong located at Grunt Gallery's Mount Pleasant Community Screen in Mount Pleasant. And at MPF, as just mentioned, viewers will discover a window installation by D.A. Schaefer, who is a staff collections coordinator and artist. Prop House is co-produced by On Main Gallery and Griffin Art Projects in collaboration with Grunt Gallery and Mount Pleasant Furniture. On Main Gallery gratefully acknowledges the support of the City of Vancouver. As well at Griffin, we would like to thank North Vancouver Recreation and Culture and the Fravey Foundation for their continuing support of our public programs. And thank you for joining us today. Prop House, a collection of 1 million objects, runs until August 18th, and the gallery is open Friday through Sunday from 12 to 5 p.m. on Sunday, July 28th, as well as, on July 21st and on August 4th. I've just dropped the link for the tours of Mount Pleasant Furniture. And as well, there will be an in-person tour in Farsi on Sunday, August 18th, on site here at the gallery from 1 to 2 p.m. I wish you a wonderful rest of your day and thank you for zooming in.